What if I told you that the real turning point in my life wasn't a victory, a trophy, or a moment of fame, but a moment of complete surrender? What if I told you that the peace I spent years chasing wasn't found in success, applause, or the world's approval, but in Islam? Listen, there comes a point where strength isn't enough. Discipline isn't enough. Even winning isn't enough. You reach the top and your heart still feels empty. You look around and everything seems loud, but inside you're silent. That silence, it breaks you. But that's exactly where my journey changed. Because Islam didn't just give me peace, it redefined my purpose. It took my fire, my passion, my ambition, and aimed it towards something higher than anything this world could offer. Imagine living with a heart that doesn't shake, a mind that doesn't panic, a purpose that doesn't fade. Imagine chasing goals with the confidence that Allah is guiding your steps. That's not just peace, that's power. Stay with me till the end, because I'm going to show you how Islam didn't just transform my life, it unlocked a version of me I didn't even know existed. What if the peace you've been searching for your entire life wasn't hiding in success, money, friends, or even the loud victories you've been chasing? What if it was quietly waiting inside you, unnoticed, untouched, and unexplored? What if the world's noise was so deafening that you couldn't hear the calm already whispering within your soul? This is where the story of discovering inner peace through Islam begins, not as a gentle moment, but as a shock, a realization that hits harder than any failure, louder than any applause, and deeper than any heartbreak you've ever survived. Imagine running endlessly, chasing goals, dreams, the next achievement, thinking that peace would appear once you reached the top. But instead, every milestone you celebrated felt strangely silent inside. It's like standing in a stadium filled with cheering voices, yet hearing nothing but your own heartbeat. You start asking yourself, why doesn't this feel enough? Why am I still restless? Why am I still searching? That's when the truth begins to rise, slowly, yet powerfully. Inner peace in Islam doesn't arrive the way motivation arrives. It doesn't hype you up. It doesn't shout. It doesn't beg for your attention. It slips into your life like dawn breaking through darkness, quiet, steady, undeniable. And the shocking part, it makes you realize how long you've been alive without truly living, how long you've been breathing without feeling the breath, how long you've been awake without understanding awareness. When Islam enters a person's heart, the first thing it does is calm the storm, not by removing problems, but by changing the way you stand inside them. You begin to feel something different, something unshakable. You feel as if someone has been holding your heart the entire time, and you just never noticed it. You begin to understand why the Quran repeats the message of peace over and over, why Allah promises tranquility to the believers, why the heart wasn't made to be fueled by chaos. But this transformation doesn't happen without shock. Because for the first time you realize how far you were from your own soul, how much of your life was spent looking outward instead of inward, how much energy you wasted running after things that were never meant to fill you. And suddenly the smallest acts in Islam feel like lifelines. Prayer feels like relief. Remembrance feels like oxygen. Surrender feels like freedom. And then the contrast hits you. When you lived without Islam, you relied on yourself for everything. Every fear, every stress, every burden rested on your shoulders alone. You carried the weight of what you couldn't control and suffered from storms that weren't meant for you. But when Islam enters your life, the weight shifts. You no longer feel alone in your struggle. You no longer believe that you must solve everything on your own. You stop fighting battles that belong to Allah. That realization is shocking. You finally understand why your heart was exhausted, why your mind was drowning, why peace felt impossible. Because peace cannot exist where trust does not exist. And Islam gives you trust, not in fate, not in luck, not in people, but in the one who created every moment of your life with purpose. You begin noticing the world differently. Every sunrise feels intentional. Every hardship feels meaningful. Every blessing feels personal. You start understanding that what you lost wasn't a punishment. What you gained wasn't just luck. And what you experience now is exactly what your soul needs. There's a softness that grows inside you, a softness that makes you strong in a completely new way. You stop breaking from pressure. You stop collapsing from fear. You stop running from pain. Because through Islam, you realize something revolutionary. Peace is not the absence of problems. Peace is the presence of Allah in your heart. Slowly, your life starts transforming. Your reactions change. Your priorities shift. The things that once controlled your emotions lose their power. You no longer respond to negativity the way you once did. You no longer depend on people to validate you or praise you. You no longer feel threatened by uncertainty. You begin to live with a calm confidence, a quiet strength, a peace that radiates not only inward, but outward. And the people around you notice. They see the difference in your eyes before you do. They see the serenity you carry. They see the grounded energy, the unshakable ease. They wonder what happened. They wonder how you changed. They wonder how you found peace in a world designed to distract you from it. But the truth is simple. You didn't find peace. Islam revealed it to you. Because the peace was always there, hidden beneath fear, ego, pressure, noise, and endless expectations. Islam didn't give you something new. It uncovered what your soul was created with. It awakened a part of you that was asleep, buried, forgotten. It gave you a heart that feels lighter, a mind that feels clearer, a purpose that feels truer. What if the discipline you thought you mastered your whole life was nothing compared to the discipline your soul was actually craving? What if the strength you believed came from your routine, your hustle, your grind, was only a fraction of the strength waiting for you on the other side of faith? What if everything you knew about commitment, waking up early, pushing your limits, chasing goals, was only training for a much deeper, more powerful, more transformative kind of discipline? The kind that Islam brings into your life without asking permission, without waiting for the right time, without knocking softly. It arrives like a wake-up call, sudden, shocking, and absolutely unforgettable. Because the truth is, most people confuse discipline with control. They think routine means strength. They think productivity equals purpose. They think that staying focused on goals mean they're living correctly. But what if all of that discipline collapses the moment your heart is empty? What if your entire structure falls apart the moment your intention loses meaning? And then enters Islam, quietly, but with an authority that shakes your entire existence. Islam doesn't just teach discipline, it rebuilds it from the ground up. Before, your discipline depended on motivation, mood, energy, or external pressure. If you were tired, the routine failed. If you were stressed, the commitment faded. If life hit hard, everything slipped away. You were strong, yes, but only until life punched back harder. Islam exposes this truth brutally. It shows you how fragile your self-made discipline really was. And then Islam replaces it with something unbreakable. Suddenly, you're waking up at dawn, not because an alarm told you to, not because a coach demanded it, not because of a competition, but because your soul calls you. Fajr becomes the first shock, a discipline so divine that it doesn't just test your body, it reforms your heart. When you stand half awake, half dreaming, whispering prayer in the silence of early morning, you realize you are practicing a level of commitment no worldly force could ever impose on you. You're doing something purely for Allah. No applause, no audience, no scoreboard. And that changes everything. The discipline of Islam enters your character. Your patience strengthens. Your self-control sharpens. Your reactions become more intentional. You stop responding to negativity the way you once did. You stop rushing into decisions. You stop letting impulses guide you. It's shocking how suddenly you begin mastering yourself, not because you're trying harder, but because your heart is anchored to something greater. Before Islam, discipline felt like pressure. After Islam, discipline feels like purpose. The 5 daily prayers become a structure that holds your entire day together. Every time you feel lost, the next prayer pulls you back. Every time worries scatter your mind, sujood gathers you again. Every time life overwhelms you, the rhythm of prayer stabilizes you. Islam trains you in consistency more powerfully than any self-help book or motivational speech ever could. And this consistency rewrites your identity. Then comes fasting, the discipline that shocks you with its depth. You begin to realize you are capable of controlling your hunger, your desires, your emotions, your words. You learn that you are stronger than your impulses, stronger than your cravings, stronger than the things that once controlled you. Fasting shows you a version of yourself you never imagined. Discipline not because the world demands it, but because Allah deserves it. And the irony, when you live without Islam, you relied on yourself for everything. Every fear, every stress, every burden rested on your shoulders alone. You relied on the biggest discipline your soul was actually craving, the kind that comes from turning to Allah and dedicating your existence to Him. And then enters Islam, quietly, but with an authority that shakes your entire existence. The irony is that when you lived without Islam, you relied on yourself for everything. Every fear, every stress, every burden rested on your shoulders alone. You carried the weight of what you couldn't control and suffered from storms that weren't meant for you. But when Islam enters your life, the weight shifts. You no longer feel alone in your struggle.
2. What if your entire life you were chasing a purpose that was never meant for you? What if the direction you were so confident about was actually the very thing pulling you away from the meaning your soul was desperately thirsting for? What if every plan you built, every goal you set, every dream you pursued was only leading you in circles, faster, louder, but nowhere closer to the truth? What if the purpose you thought you understood was just a shadow, and the real purpose, the real meaning, the real direction was waiting for you in a place you never expected? Islam. There comes a moment in life when everything feels successful on the outside, but hollow on the inside. A moment where even achievements feel strangely empty. You look around and ask yourself, is this it? Is this really all there is? You've got goals, you've got plans, you've got ambitions, but still something feels missing. Something invisible, something essential. This is where the shock begins. Because the moment Islam enters your life, you realize that purpose isn't something you create, it's something you discover. Your heart recognizes it before your mind does. It feels like finding a light you never knew you lost. Suddenly, the questions that haunted you, the confusion that overwhelmed you, the emptiness that quietly sat inside you, all of it begins to shift. Islam gives direction not by adding pressure, but by removing illusion. The illusion that happiness comes from possessions, the illusion that success comes from people's approval, the illusion that purpose is something you achieve instead of something you live. And when those illusions fall apart, the truth hits you with a force you weren't prepared for. You realize that purpose is not about becoming more, but about becoming closer to Allah, to truth, to your own soul. You learn that every moment in your life was connected. Every hardship had meaning. Every delay was protection. Every blessing was guidance. Islam shows you that your life isn't random. It's written perfectly, intentionally, lovingly. And the direction Islam gives you isn't temporary. It's eternal. You begin to see your days differently. Waking up is no longer just routine. It's gratitude. Earning a living is no longer just responsibility, it's worship. Choosing kindness is no longer a moral decision, it's a path to Allah. Even the smallest actions, smiling, forgiving, helping, being patient, suddenly carry weight, meaning, reward. Imagine discovering that every step you take can become worship simply by adjusting your intention. The shock of that realization is life-changing. You realize you wasted so many years thinking purpose was locked inside accomplishments, not inside sincerity. And then something even deeper happens. You begin to trust life in a way you never did before. The confusion starts fading. The anxiety loosens its grip. The constant need for control weakens. Because Islam teaches you that every direction you take is guided as long as your heart is anchored to Allah. You stop questioning, why me, and start understanding, this is for me. You stop running from hardships and start learning through them. You stop trying to force life because you finally understand the one who controls it. With Islam, purpose becomes clear: to live with meaning, to act with intention, to worship with sincerity, to leave a mark that matters beyond this world. And this change is shocking because it doesn't just happen mentally, it happens spiritually. Something inside you shifts. You begin recognizing signs you ignored before. You feel connected to life in a deeper, calmer, more powerful way. You no longer feel lost even in moments of uncertainty because your purpose isn't tied to circumstances, it's tied to Allah. Then comes the moment that hits you the hardest. You realize that before Islam, you were alive but not truly living. You were breathing but not truly feeling. You were moving but not truly progressing. Your direction was based on what the world wanted from you, not what your soul needed for you. And when Islam redefines your purpose, you begin walking with intention instead of instinct, clarity instead of confusion, faith instead of fear. The shock isn't that Islam gives you purpose. The shock is that it reveals the purpose that was always inside you. A purpose built on gratitude, because every blessing becomes a reminder. A purpose built on responsibility, because every action becomes a test. A purpose built on love, because your heart finally learns who to return to. And as this transformation happens, you start noticing a peace you never expected, a clarity you never imagined, a direction that doesn't fade even when life gets difficult. You stop asking, "What is my purpose?" and start living the answer. To worship Allah, to grow, to serve, to reflect beauty, patience, strength, and mercy in everything you do. What if every challenge you ever faced wasn't actually breaking you, but building you, without you even realizing it? What if every moment you thought was the end was actually the beginning of a strength you never knew you had? What if the struggles that made you cry, the losses that crushed you, the pain that left you breathless were all quietly shaping you for something greater? This is where faith enters. Not softly, not gently. It teaches you how to walk through them without losing yourself. Most people think strength comes from muscles, confidence, or power. They think strength is about staying tough, never breaking, never falling. But Islam shows you a truth that flips your entire understanding. Real strength comes from surrender. Real strength comes from patience. Real strength comes from trusting Allah when everything in your life feels impossible. And that realization hits you like lightning, because suddenly you see it, the pattern behind every hardship you ever survived, the moments you thought you couldn't recover from, but you did, the nights you cried quietly but woke up with a heart still beating, the disappointments that shattered you but somehow made you wiser. You start realizing that the strength that got you through those moments was not yours. It was placed inside you. You didn't create it. It was gifted to you by Allah. That is the shock. You were never alone, not for a single second, not even when you felt abandoned by the world. Islam doesn't just give you strength, it reveals the strength Allah already put inside you before you were even born. And then comes the deeper transformation. Sabr, patience. Not the weak, quiet, passive patience people talk about. Real sabr, active, powerful, fierce. The kind that keeps you standing when life tries to push you down. The kind that keeps you calm when your world is shaking. The kind that makes people wonder how you're still breathing after everything you've endured. Patience in Islam is not about waiting, it's about holding on. Holding on when your heart is breaking. Holding on when your plans collapse. Holding on when your life takes a turn you never expected. And then there is tawakkul, trust in Allah so deep, so unshakable, so fearless that it shocks even you. Before Islam, you tried to control everything. You stressed over every scenario.
You panicked over every uncertainty. You carried every burden on your shoulders. And then Islam teaches you something revolutionary. The moment you leave your affairs to Allah, your heart becomes undefeatable. You start letting go, not because you're weak, but because you finally understand strength. You stop fighting the things you cannot control. You stop drowning in fear about the future. You stop obsessing over what you lost. Because now you know whatever was written for you will reach you, and whatever was not meant for you will never stay. This trust becomes your quiet superpower. People around you feel the change. They see you responding differently to life. You don't break down over small things anymore. You don't chase people. You don't panic about uncertainty. You become grounded, steady, calm in ways you never imagined. You start to look like someone who has seen storms and survived them with scars that shine instead of bleed. And then you realize something that shakes your soul. Your challenges were never punishments. Your challenges were never signs of weakness. Your struggles were actually invitations, divine invitations to strengthen your heart, elevate your soul, and awaken your faith. Islam teaches you that strength isn't loud, it's silent. It grows in sujood, when you whisper your deepest fears to Allah. It grows in the quiet acceptance of what you cannot change. It grows in the courage.
What if the chaos you thought was part of your personality was never really yours? What if the emotional storms you lived with, those sudden waves of sadness, anger, confusion, emptiness, were not signs of weakness, but signs that your soul was searching for a home? What if every breakdown, every restless night, every moment where you felt lost wasn't a failure, but a message? A message that something inside you was begging to be healed, begging to be guided, begging to be understood. And what if the peace you were looking for wasn't in people, in distractions, in routines, or in temporary escapes, but in Islam? Because when Islam enters your life, it doesn't just calm your mind, it heals your heart. And that healing doesn't feel gentle, it feels shocking. It feels like someone lifted a heavy weight off your chest that you didn't even realize you were carrying. It feels like the noise you lived with your entire life suddenly disappears. And you stand there wondering, how was I surviving before this? How was I breathing through all that chaos? Islam doesn't remove your emotions, it organizes them. It doesn't erase your pain, it gives your pain a purpose. It doesn't silence your thoughts, it guides them. The emotional stability Islam brings is not the kind that comes from controlling life, it comes from understanding life. And once you understand, the storms lose their power over you. Imagine realizing that you don't have to fight everything. You don't have to fix everything. You don't have to carry everything. You don't have to pretend you're strong when you're breaking inside. Because Islam teaches you something shocking. It's okay to collapse, as long as you collapse in sujood. It's okay to cry, as long as your tears fall for the one who hears even the sound of your heartbeat. It's okay to feel lost, as long as you know who can guide you back. That realization changes everything. Suddenly, your emotions stop controlling you. The anger you used to explode with softens. The sadness that used to drown you lightens. The anxiety that used to suffocate you releases its hold. The overthinking that used to consume you quiets. Because for the first time, you understand that you are being held by a power greater than all your fears combined. This emotional healing doesn't come from avoiding reality, it comes from trusting Allah with your reality. You start saying things you never said before. Allah knows what I don't know. Allah planned what I can't understand yet. Allah protected me from things I begged for. Allah will give me better than what I lost. And each of these thoughts becomes medicine. Then comes the moment that shakes your soul. You realize that the emotional chaos you lived with wasn't your fate, it was your test. A test to bring you closer to Allah. A test to make you stronger. A test to make your heart softer. Islam doesn't just stabilize you, it transforms what stability even means. Before Islam, stability meant pretending to be fine. After Islam, stability means being honest with Allah about your pain. Before Islam, stability meant escaping your emotions. After Islam, it means understanding them through faith. Before Islam, stability meant relying on people. After Islam, it means relying on the one who never leaves. The calmness Islam brings feels supernatural. You feel it when you breathe during prayer. You feel it when you whisper zikr in silence. You feel it when your forehead touches the ground and your heart finally rests. You feel it when life should break you, but doesn't. People around you notice. They see a calmness in you they can't explain. They see you respond to life with maturity instead of panic. They see you trusting instead of fearing. They see you glowing with a peace they wish they knew. And you know exactly where it came from. Because Islam didn't just heal your emotions. It healed the root of your emotions. It didn't fix your mood, it fixed your heart. It didn't silence your thoughts, it transformed your perspective. It didn't silence your tears, it gave them meaning. And the shocking truth is this: the emotional stability you were chasing from the world was something the world was never capable of giving you. Only Allah could give you that level of peace. Only Islam could align your soul with your mind with your heart, and your heart with your Creator. And once this healing begins, even the deepest wounds become sources of light. Even the hardest past becomes a blessing. Even the tears become a form of worship. Even the chaos becomes clarity. And you finally understand that emotional peace doesn't come when life gets easier. It comes when your heart gets closer to Allah. At the end of this journey, one truth stands unshakable. Peace is not something we chase in the world. It is something we awaken within ourselves when we surrender to the one who created us. Islam didn't just redefine my purpose. It rebuilt my heart, reshaped my vision, and transformed my entire existence. It taught me that strength is not in how loud you roar, but in how deeply you believe. It taught me that real victory is not in winning the battles of this world, but in conquering the battles inside the soul. It taught me that every fall is a path to rise, every tear is a doorway to mercy, and every moment of confusion is a step towards clarity. If there is one message I leave you with, it's this: the path of peace is not distant, difficult, or hidden. It's here. It's open. It's waiting. And the moment you let Islam enter your heart, everything changes. Not slowly, but powerfully, fearlessly, and forever.
What if the things you were most proud of in life, your success, your confidence, your independence, were actually the things pulling you away from the version of yourself your soul was meant to become? What if the very achievements you thought defined you were the same ones keeping you blind to the truth? What if the greatest transformation of your life didn't come from winning, accomplishing, or rising, but from something as simple, as pure, and as shocking as humility and gratitude? There comes a moment when Islam enters your heart and flips your entire understanding of greatness. You suddenly realize that the world taught you to chase pride, but Islam teaches you to chase purity. The world taught you to show off your strength, but Islam teaches you to show your sincerity. The world taught you to celebrate yourself, but Islam teaches you to thank Allah before you thank yourself. And that shift hits harder than anything you've ever experienced. Because humility isn't weakness, it's awakening. Humility teaches you that you don't own anything. Not your success, not your talent, not your intelligence, not your opportunities. You realize how fragile everything is, how quickly it can be taken, how easily life can turn. You recognize that every step you take, every breath you inhale, every blessing you enjoy was never yours in the first place. It was gifted to you. And when you finally understand that, something profound happens. Your ego starts dissolving. And that is one of the most shocking transformations of all. Suddenly, the things that used to make you feel big start making you feel small, in the most beautiful way. You stop walking with a heart full of arrogance and begin walking with a heart full of awareness. You start seeing how dependent you really are on Allah, and how dangerous it is to let pride fool you into thinking you're self-made. Islam exposes pride for what it truly is, a silent poison that destroys the soul long before it destroys the life. Then comes gratitude. Not the casual thank you people say without thinking. Real gratitude, the kind that shakes you, the kind that makes you stare at your hands and realize how much you've been given. The kind that makes you cry because you finally see how many blessings you wasted, ignored, or took for granted. Gratitude in Islam is powerful because it opens your eyes. It makes you recognize the miracles in your routine, the blessings in your pain, the gifts hidden in your struggles. Imagine spending years thinking that gratitude is something you express only when life is perfect, only to learn that gratitude is actually what makes your life feel perfect in the first place. That realization hits differently. You look back at your past and suddenly notice how many disasters you avoided, how many prayers were answered quietly, how many hardships ended in wisdom, how many mistakes didn't ruin your life because Allah protected you even when you didn't ask. You realize how much mercy you've been living under without even knowing it. And then your heart softens. You begin thanking Allah for things you once overlooked, for the difficulties that taught you patience, for the people who left and made you stronger, for the days you cried and found Allah in your tears, for the moments of weakness that brought you closer to Him. Gratitude becomes your lens. Humility becomes your foundation. Together, they transform your heart in ways that shock you. You start treating people differently. You soften your tone. You choose kindness over ego. You stop comparing your life with others because you finally understand Allah gave you exactly what you need at the exact moment you need it. You stop expecting perfection from the world because you realize it was never meant to be perfect. You stop bragging about your achievements because you know Allah could take them in an instant. You start giving more, forgiving more, listening more. Your heart becomes lighter, your mind becomes calmer, your soul becomes clearer. People around you notice the shift. They see a version of you that radiates peace, not pride. A version of you that inspires rather than competes. A version of you that is grounded, grateful, and genuine. They wonder what happened to you, why your energy feels different, why your presence feels warmer, why your words have depth. The answer is simple. Humility cleaned your heart. Gratitude filled it. And then you realize something incredible. Humility and gratitude don't make you smaller, they make you greater. They don't weaken you, they strengthen you. They don't limit you, they elevate you. Because a humble heart is loved by Allah, a grateful heart is rewarded by Allah, and a heart that holds both becomes unstoppable. Islam teaches you that the true measure of a person isn't how high they rise, but how deeply they bow to their Creator. Not how much they have, but how thankful they are. Not how loudly they speak, but how gently they carry their blessings. And once humility and gratitude enter your life through Islam, everything changes. You begin to live with a clarity, softness, and sincerity the old version of you could never understand. And you finally feel something you were searching for all along: peace.